As I watched episode 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, I realized we might have an excellent show on our hands because of the rich hidden symbolism in many scenes. For instance, this shot at the start of episode 1 showing Dunk burying his former master, Sir Arlen of Pennytree. A tree stands tall on the left-hand side of the frame as Dunk digs a grave for his master down the hill. Trees are everywhere in this first episode, and I think they're being used as a motif in this show. For one, Dunk's former master is called Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
I was squire to Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
Second, Dunk is a hedge knight, which means he often sleeps outdoors under hedges or trees due to being poor.
It's a hedge knight, ain't it?
What?
It's like a knight, but sadder.
Third, there's a mountain of tree imagery throughout this episode, like this establishing shot of Dunk riding into Ashford in the morning, or later when Dunk seeks shelter for the night and finds this lone tree in the woods to set up camp under. We end the episode with him and Egg staring up at the stars, with the branches of this tree very specifically placed in the foreground. Then we have this Sir Stephen Fossaway with an apple insignia on his armor. Apples obviously come from trees, as we know, and there's a few spoken references to this in the episode.
I may not be right, but my cousin's rotten to the core. Knock the seeds out of him.
Quiet.
Stephen's cousin says this to Dunk later in the episode as well.
Though he is the senior branch of the apple tree, which he never ceases to remind me.
Earlier, as Dunk talks to the master of the games, the master asks whether anyone was a witness to Dunk's knighting. Dunk replies,
Only a robin in a thorn tree.
If all of this tree symbolism seems far-fetched to you, let's take a look at the poster for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. In it, we see Dunk and Egg underneath a tree, along with a shield that has a tree painted on it. This shield is different from the one Dunk sports in episode 1, hinting at the fact that he acquires this in later episodes. It sure seems like the filmmakers are going out of their way to put all this tree imagery in here. One of my favorite shots of this episode is when Dunk gives a eulogy for his master. The camera starts fixed on Dunk and his horse is in the background, and as he talks, the camera eases in towards him and pans upward to show the tree in the background. This moment could have been shot a million different ways, from the side, from behind his head, or maybe even just a close-up on his face as he says these tender words. The filmmakers are choosing to feature trees a lot in the props, story, and cinematography of this episode. It's used prominently in the title card sequence too, which sets the tone for the entire show. So, what does it mean? There's a few possible interpretations. For one, Dunk being super tall is referenced ad nauseum in this first episode, both in dialogue and in visual gags. One of my favorite shots is when Egg asks Dunk,
What's your name?
And we get this wide shot of Dunk as he says,
Sir Duncan the Tall.
He stops slouching before he says this, a tip that Lionel Baratheon gave him earlier.
That why you slouch? So you don't get punched. The seven above gave you tallness, so be tall.
This, from what I've read, is a story about one of the greatest knights who ever lived in Westeros. But before all that, he is who we're seeing now, a poor man who isn't quite sure whether he can be a truly great knight or person. I think this is the story that's being told in this famous shot of Dunk digging his master's grave. He's framed low down the hill while this tree stands tall and proud in the high ground. The horses are up there under the tree too, looking regal and majestic. Dunk, on the other hand, is out in the rain digging a ditch. Dunk is built like the Empire State Building, but it's his confidence that's lacking. He needs to stand tall, like this tree, and see just how high his branches can reach. I also think it could be symbolizing Dunk's pure heart. He's rooted and has morals, instead of unhinged and heartless like so many lords and ladies of Westeros. It's this down-to-earth nature of Dunk that makes his story so interesting. It's his pure heart, his rooted nature, that actually makes him an extraordinary knight. I think on another level, this tree symbolism ties into lineages and the great houses of Westeros. For instance, Stefan's cousin says that Stefan is the senior branch of the apple tree. We also meet Lionel Baratheon this episode, head of the great House Baratheon, who talks with Dunk about his ancestors barreling into great storms at sea.
That I had to do, Stormlanders had always done. And if they had done it, I could do it too.
What's interesting here is that Dunk is an orphan, and so is Egg. They're both cut off from their own lineages in a way, and have to start fresh from a seed, essentially. This tree at the start of the episode isn't very big at all. Visually, it makes sense to connect this small tree with Dunk himself, and to compare this small tree to the big family trees, the big houses of Westeros, to show what Dunk is really up against. Another thing I loved about this first episode is the music, particularly this whistle song that plays when Dunk finds his campground for the night. It also plays near the end of the episode when Egg reappears.
You'll have clothes on your back and food in your belly.
Compared to the towering orchestral music we typically hear in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, this humble music creates a small-scale atmosphere to the show. There's one bit of foreshadowing I wanted to talk about here as well. For one, I think this dance scene with Lionel Baratheon and Dunk is massively foreshadowing something that'll happen in the joust. Lionel and Dunk dance, and after a few moments, Lionel steps on Dunk's foot. Then he starts aggressively stomping near Dunk's feet to get him again. Dunk evades, then has enough and stomps on Lionel's foot, causing him to double over in pain. Dunk stares at Lionel in horror, expecting punishment, and then Lionel winks at him and they start spinning on the dance floor in joy. Later, we see Dunk wearing Lionel's antler crown as they talk about life, risk-taking, and glory. I think this sequence indicates that Lionel and Dunk are going to meet in this tournament somehow, and that Dunk is going to beat him and wear this crown of victory, so to speak. Who knows whether that'll happen? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Symbolically, though, it's interesting that Dunk wears these antlers here. Stags, or male deer, hold a lot of symbolic meaning in Celtic and Norse lore. They represent power, royalty, wildness, and nature. I think for Dunk, the wildness and nature part of that really fits his character. For instance, at the end of the episode, he shares a tender conversation with Egg.
There's my pavilion.
That's a tree.
Yes, and it's all the pavilion a true knight needs. I'd sooner sleep under the stars than in some smoky tent.
Dunk not only sleeps under the hedges for financial reasons, but because he prefers it. This motif of nature can also mean our own nature as well. Lionel Baratheon tells Dunk that the gods made him tall, so he should be tall. He should embrace his own nature. If you remember, Lionel Baratheon tells Dunk of how he drove into the storm, conquering nature and joining fellow Stormlanders who'd done the same thing before him. The message of this story is that we don't need to be highborn to do great things. All we have to do is embrace our own nature, our natural gifts, to achieve greatness. One transformation I love in this first episode is Dunk's willingness to take on Egg as a squire. He doesn't accept him at first back at the inn because deep down he doesn't believe he can give him a good life. He tells Egg,
Look, lad, I promise you, you're better off not squiring for the likes of me.
but at the end of the episode, after he's listened to inspiring knight tales, met a king, and saw the man behind this antler crown, he believes that he too can do great things, and he's finally ready to take on Egg as his squire. That's the journey that Dunk goes on in this episode. He embraces his nature, calling himself Sir Duncan the Tall, and we ride into episode 2, waiting to see what'll happen in the joust. What did you notice in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms first episode? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want more Knight of the Seven Kingdoms analysis, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I plan to make a video about every episode this season. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.